So one thing I want to go over really fast that's important is repricers. Now, this is going to be a lifesaver for your business if you're planning on selling back on Amazon, okay? Now, I'm going to recommend some repricers to you, but all the top people that are selling on Amazon, all the top arbitragers have repricing software. The reason you want repricing software is so that you can constantly be competitive for the buy box or constantly match the lower price if you're selling like books or other lower price items like that, right? So you can utilize a repricer to really increase your sales. I fought this for so long, but the second that you start using a repricer, it will make a world of difference for your business. And you can find cheap repricers or even free repricers. I'm going to give you an option for that as well. If you set up repricing on your Amazon listing, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for you. It takes a lot, practically all the time off your hands once you set the rules, right? And then you can basically, your products will slowly compete for the buy box price or the lowest or match the lowest price, depending on what you set up. And you will make more sales with no more effort. So I highly recommend that you use a repricer, especially because you want to automate your business and take a lot of the time and onus off you so you can focus more on sourcing products and shipping them into FBA or selling them on other marketplaces and just automate this side of the business, especially for the prices that you can get this software for. So what I use and I recommend is Reprice It. Reprice It is incredible. It's only $9.95 a month, and there's a free 30-day trial that you can use to play around with it. If you don't like it, you can simply cancel it. But for $10 a month, you're going to make that up in sales if you're selling any legitimate volume of products on Amazon. You want a repricer, and repricer is my favorite. It's what I recommend that you use. Now, another one, just to give you another example, is Be Cool. There are probably 10 to 50 of them out there that you can utilize. You can look up repricing software for Amazon if you want to. One of the other ones that comes highly recommended that also comes with a free trial is Be Cool. Be Cool is a little bit more expensive, but it's still relatively cheap. Like I said, I recommend Reprice It. Be Cool is another alternative that's a great example that you can utilize. Now, if you're strapped for cash, or if you're on a low budget, or if you just want to kind of play around with it initially, Amazon does come with a free repricer, and that will automate your pricing for you once you set it up. Now, there are some bugs a little bit with Amazon, with their actual repricer. So sometimes you'll notice that depending on what you set the price as, it will tell you that you can't set it that low or you can't set it that high. And it's also kind of a little bit less advanced than some of the other softwares out there that strictly focus on repricing. That said, it is a great alternative for those of you that want a repricer and all the benefits that comes with that, but don't want to spend the $9.95 for like Reprice It or another software like that, right? So you can utilize the Amazon automated pricing system to your advantage for free. So the way that you get there is you go to pricing, automate pricing, and it's going to take you to this menu. Then you're going to hit get started and basically set all your parameters for what you want, right? So you can select a rule. You want to compete for the buy box, that's what you want to do. Or you want to compete, like if you're selling books, for example, this is one that I do a lot. If I'm selling used books, I'll compete for the lowest price so that, you know, people that go into like used books see me as the lowest price. And then you can basically name the rule, set your parameters for it. Obviously, you're going to sell it back on the Amazon marketplace. And then your parameters, meaning like which specific SKUs in your inventory you want this rule to apply to, and what your lowest price is and your highest price that you're willing to go. Then once you set it up, Amazon will slowly adjust your prices to either match the buy box price so that you get the buy box, or match the lowest price or whatever rule you set up. And then you can just never ever worry about worrying about your prices if you have the lowest price or if you're competing for the buy box at that current time. You don't have to keep checking your prices. You don't have to keep changing your prices. I highly recommend that you invest in automation software for your pricing if you're reselling back on Amazon at any legitimate level. Like I said, the free one comes on Amazon.com, pricing, automate pricing. It works well, although it is not nearly as sophisticated as some of the other softwares. I use Reprice It. It comes highly recommended by everybody that I network with, and since I've been using it, my sales have been up dramatically. But another one, just to give you an example, and like I said, there's about 10 to 50 of them, is Be Cool as well. So check those, look into them, and I highly recommend that you at least use the Amazon repricer if you're not willing to go out and purchase software for this. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So today I'm going to run you through how to set up repricing software with Reprice It. And I get it because when I first started, it was kind of confusing setting up the software on repriceit.com. I'm literally going to show you all my setup, how I set up the schedule, how you can do it too the quickest because I don't want to waste your time. For those of you that don't know, there is actually a free one in Seller Central. So if you go to pricing, automate pricing, you can set up the repricing software 100% free in Seller Central, although there are some specific limitations with that. It takes if you have like any amount of SKUs that are probably like above 100, I would say, good luck setting that up because it's going to take you a long time to set the minimum and maximum price manually through every single one and then set up all the SKUs in there. In my opinion, it's just not worth it to use that. But if you are looking, to keep your costs as low as possible, then you can invest an hour or so into setting that up yourself, although I don't recommend using it. I've tried before. It's difficult, it's buggy, and I don't really like it. Now, I use Reprice It, but there are other ones out there. I've talked about Be Cool before, and there are probably like 4 or 5 other ones that come to mind. I just use this one because it's familiar to me. It's the one that I've always used, and it's in my opinion, it's honestly probably one of the best. Now, I have heard some other people say that they like other ones better, but this one, I'm just familiar, like I said. I've been using it for a while, and I know that it works. Also, you can get a free 30-day trial. You can just go to repriceit.com, sign up, and then you'll get free 30 days to test it out. And then you'll obviously find out that it does work well, and you'll probably want to keep it. So I believe if you have under 500 SKUs, I think it's $9.99 for the tier that I'm at, whether it's like 500 SKUs to like 2,000 SKUs. I think it's $15.99 or $16.99. I honestly don't remember what I pay for it a month, but it's $15 or $16.99, so it's still super cheap. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to make you a lot of money too, because it's going to make sure that your prices are either, depending on which way you set it up, and I'll show you here that I use it 2 different ways, one for my books and one for my new products, okay? So basically the main ways that you're going to use it is you're going to match the lowest price always, or you're going to match the buy box price. Now, I only do this for the things that I fulfill by me, so my merchant fulfill, but for the ones that are in the FBA for me specifically, and you can also set this up through FBA, I'll show you how to do it. I like to kind of just manage them myself because sometimes I do like to undercut the buy box and other times I like to match it. So depending on whether or not that's like a brand new book that I'm shipping in, or depending on whether that or not that's a private label product that I have, or depending on like an online arbitrage private label product through a coupon site, right? Or if it's like something else entirely, it depends on what I want to do with it. So I like to manage those, and I usually only have about 20 to 50 SKUs, like different types of items in FBA at any given time. So it's not that difficult to manage my FBA inventory. I literally just go into Seller Central, manage FBA inventory, not my inventory. And because these are only set up to manage the fulfilled by merchant, as you see here with the template names, it doesn't affect any of my FBA inventory, and I just manage that myself, okay? So that's how I do it, but you can set it up a number of different ways. Once you understand how to set it up, like I'm going to show you here, you can really get creative with this a number of different ways. I've seen people have literally 30 different templates. Obviously, I only have 2. They have 30 different templates, and all 30 different templates are going off at any given time during the day. It's a little bit much in my opinion, but hey, if it works for you, you can get creative and you can do it. Now, the first thing that you're going to need to do once you sign up is you're going to need to get started. Now, without me wasting your time and explaining to you how to go in and set up third-party apps to give them your basically your account ID and to give them your key to actually access your seller account, it literally describes how to do this for you here. So what you want to do on the dashboard home is you want to go to Getting Started Guide, and that's going to run you through literally all the click patterns that you need to do in Seller Central to get your account key, get your account ID, and then you just want to give that to Reprice It in your account settings, and boom, they're in. They sign up through your account so that they can access all your inventory, and that's how they reprice it with their software, okay? Very simple to do, but it's all right here in the Getting Started Guide, so I'm not going to cover that in this because I'm not going to insult your intelligence, and I also don't want to waste your time. The main 2 things that were difficult for me and confusing to me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, when getting started with Reprice It was the repricing settings and the repricing schedule, okay? So as you'll see here, I have my schedule going off every 2 hours. Now, I had this going off every hour because you'll see once you set this up, they do give you, so if I were to create a new schedule right here, they do give you a warning. So 15 minutes for smaller sellers and up to an hour for larger sellers. Because I have currently about 500, I think it's like 530 SKUs in my inventory, and there's probably about 1,000 to 1,500 books behind the computer that you literally can't see right now. I'm trying to get ungated for like top brands like Nike and Adidas and Puma and stuff like that. So because of that, I need to sell a lot of books so that I can get ungated. So, little bit beyond the scope of this video, but that's the reason I've been selling a lot of books lately. So because I have so many SKUs, I deleted every other hour so that it's going off every 2 hours, because as you see, once I get close to 2,000 SKUs, it might take up to an hour or slightly more, so I don't want to reprice it every single hour, okay? So that's why you see in my repricing schedule, it's going off literally every other hour. So 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 7 a.m., and so on and so forth, okay? So once you set it up, you're going to come down here to create a new schedule. You can also turn on all your schedules. You can also turn off all your schedules. You'll see currently they're active. And you can also go in and edit them and manually turn each individual one off if you ever want to do it, or delete it, okay? So basically you can set it up daily. You can set it up on certain days. Most of you are probably going to want to set it up daily, right? And then you're going to want to add different times in there, and you can literally add times every 15 minutes if you want, or you can add times every 30 minutes or every hour or every other hour like I do, or every 6 hours, whatever you want to do. Just keep in mind that you do need to allow the time. Literally, if I read this to you, be sure to allow enough time between schedules for your repricing event to complete. Otherwise, your schedule will not be executed. So if you feel like you have a decent amount of SKUs, give it a little bit more time. Don't do it every hour, maybe like every hour and a half, okay? And if you're repricing every hour and a half, your sales will rise, because if you're doing it manually, I guarantee you, not guarantee you have to sleep, so that's like 8 hours right there. And I guarantee you're not doing it every other hour on the dot. So this is really going to increase your sales and save you a lot of different time when you set it up. So daily, then you just put the time in. So if I wanted it to be like 3 p.m., okay, 3 p.m., boom, all templates or just a certain template. So this is something crucial too. If you want it to be active right away, then you're going to check this button and you're going to hit add schedule. If you don't and you just want to test it out, and without getting too in depth with it, you can kind of see if something's working before you have it apply to your inventory. So before you actually grant Reprice It access to physically reprice your books in Seller Central, you can set the software up to go through test runs and then check it through your repricing reports to see the different adjustments they would have made but didn't make. The reason that you want to do that is to kind of see before you set it up and before you have all your things go live that it's working, and it's working how you want it to work depending on the parameters that you set up. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in repricing settings here in a second. So if you don't want it to actually make the changes yet, and then you want to see the repricing reports, then don't click this active. If you do, and you're already sold on it, and you're just creating a new schedule, or you don't even feel like testing it out, and you just want it to go live immediately, then click it and hit add schedule, okay? So that is how you set up the repricing schedules, just like that, and then you can manage them all here in repricing schedules, okay? The next thing that is most confusing to people is the repricing settings. So if you go into repricing settings, you'll see that I have 2 different repricing settings going live right here. So I can view and edit them from repricing settings right here. But if you want to create a new one, you want to go to the dashboard home. And when you go to your dashboard home, you're going to see one thing here if you just signed up, and it's going to say global. I don't know why they call it global, but that's just the one that they have ready to roll for you. That's like their stock template. So you can either delete that or you can modify that one. But to show you how to set these up, I'm going to create a new template. Now, you want to name your different templates. So maybe if you're shipping stuff into FBA and you're shipping books into FBA, you name it FBA new books. Or maybe if you're doing, coupon arbitrage, you name it FBA coupon arbitrage, right? Or maybe if you're fulfilling it by merchant and you're getting used books, you do FBM used books, right? So this is just so you can understand what you're naming your template, so when you go back into your repricing settings, you can modify or make sure, and also in your repricing reports, make sure that it's actually executing the different things that you want the right way. So I'm just going to name this test template because obviously this isn't real for me, but I just want to show you how to use it. So This is exactly how I used to set mine up. So what I did is I'd come down to merchant fulfilled items only, because like I told you, I like to personally choose what my prices are or match buy box prices manually in my FBA inventory, because I like to control my FBA inventory. I have like 533 or 34 SKUs right now. About 490 of them are all fulfilled by merchant, and only maybe 30 of them or 40 of them are FBA. So it doesn't take too long for me to, basically monitor my FBA prices, because there's only about 30 or 40 of them. But all the merchant fulfilled are manually adjusted through this repricing software. That's like my used books. That's some new books that don't sell very high, and that's some other products that I sell used like new, but I'm not going to get into all that right here. So you can set it up for FBA items only, you can set it up for merchant fulfilled items only, or you can assign specific SKUs to it. So if you really want to get in depth with this, you can assign specific SKUs in your inventory to this. If maybe you're like doing private label and you want to set up different things like that, or if you're doing online arbitrage and you want to set up certain things like that, or you can fulfill it for just like everything. So both merchant fulfilled and FBA. So depending on how you want to go with this route, you can get really creative and you can utilize it that way. I'm going to keep it merchant fulfilled only. You know what? I'm going to do FBA because the majority of you watching this are probably going to be shipping all your stuff into FBA. So I'll keep it that way. Now, the next thing you want to do is list your template criteria. So basically you just want to read these things, right? And you're going to say, okay, a listing date from X days to X days old, and then reprice it. I don't ever play around with this. You can also set certain sales ranges. So like if you only want to reprice items that are under, 100, or only reprice items that are over 100,000 bestseller rank, or only reprice items that are like under 5,000 bestseller rank, that's how you would do that right here, right? Or same thing with price range. Only reprice things from like $9.99 to like $19.99 or whatever, what have you. And this is probably the most important thing. So you can play around with these three things. They're not the most important thing. This is the condition note. But so you can play around with those things, or really get creative with however you want to use the software. This is probably the most important thing right here, the condition, because this is how I use it, right? But depending on how you want to use it and depending on what items you're sourcing, I want different parameters, and you'll see if I go back to my repricing settings right here, I basically have two ways that I do this, right? So that the fulfilled by, I have three ways, right? So I have my FBA inventory that I manually do, which is only ever like 20 to 50 SKUs. Sometimes it can get a little bit higher than that, but I still like to do it manually myself. But what I do is, so when I'm fulfilling by merchant, I either want to match the buy box price with new items, or I want to match the lowest price with used items, okay? But you can also match the lowest price with like anything underused like new. So you want like used good, used acceptable, and used very good. And then you want to set that up because you know going in that you're going to want to match the lowest price. What I like to do is I'll match all the lowest price on all of these unless I'm shipping my used like new into Amazon to try to potentially get the buy box, okay? Or like the other one, right? If you want to set like match the buy box, you need to go understand what your end goal is, what your end goal is in mind ahead of time, right? So if I want to go new and match the buy box, then I'm not going to select any of these other ones. I'm simply going to use new, right? So now we have FBA items, new, add the template, and then update it, right? So then it's going to take us into this template right here, the test template right here, okay? And I'm going to go into, and also before we get into like this setting up of the template right here, if you ever want to, so for me specifically, if I want to make sure, you saw in my repricing schedule that it's set to go off every other hour. So it went off at 1 p.m. It's currently, you can't see because my face is in the way, it's currently 1:32 p.m. right now. So it went off 30 minutes ago and started repricing all my items. All my items should be repriced that are used and new, that are both used and new, right? So my new items are matched the buy box price again, and my used items are matched the lowest price again, unless somebody else's repricing software or manually changed those listings, right? So I could, if I ever wanted to come in and it's like 1:30 and I really want to be competitive, I can always come back to my repricing settings and hit reprice it now like this on my used books, right? Reprice it now, boom. And there. Boom, I just initiated another repricing sequence. So not only is it the schedule set up on autopilot, I can also keep my dashboard up and continually reprice whenever I want by simply just hitting reprice it now. Then I can also see what was done in my repricing reports under that actual thing, right? So it'll come up as 1:30 p.m. or 1:33 p.m. Repricing report for FBM used books, blah, blah, blah. It'll show me all the adjustments that it made, okay? So now that we've got that out of the way, what you want to do is you want to come into, we're going to use test template. We're going to set it up. Remember, we're sending our FBA inventory and it's new, right? So we're going to set this up to match the buy box price. Now, if you want to always match the buy box price and then manually adjust yours, you can do that as well. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do is this template order it's kind of irrelevant, but basically what you want to do when you set up a template order is if all of these things aren't different, and obviously mine are different, right? So my 2 or my 3 doesn't matter. Usually this is 1 or 2 because one's only strictly new and one's only strictly used. So it doesn't matter what order they go in. They're irrelevant because they're on different items, right? However, if you do have templates that overlap certain items, then that becomes important. So you can set up your template order. That's what it means. So maybe you want this one to go first and then the next one make an adjustment, right? So if this template you want to be your second one after your original adjustment, then you'd make it a 2, right? Boom. And that's how you would do that. So I'm not going to play around with that too much because I like to set mine up different products. But you can if you want to. Like I said, there's so many ways to get creative when you're doing this. Now that I showed you the test template and how to adjust that, what you want to do is you want to come back to the dashboard and you're going to go to your repricing settings finally. And that's how we're going to change certain things. So this is what really confuses a lot of people. And the reason it's confusing is because there's a lot of different things here and a lot of different ways to set up your templates, okay? So if you're ever confused and you get lost, you can always read these little question marks that are going to give you insight on how to set it up or if you want to leave it blank, okay? There's a lot of information in here, and it makes it really simple. Just take a deep breath, take it slow, read your question mark, and it will tell you what to do. So if, like I said, for example, I want to compare my new items only against other new competing offers. If I ship them into FBA, I can have that clicked. If, I want to compare my used items only to against other used items, I can have that clicked. Or I can unclick both of them and just set my template up so my new items compete against both new and used items on that listing, and vice versa, okay? So for me specifically, if I'm shipping something into FBA for this template, so I'm shipping new items into FBA, I'm only really concerned with the new items on that actual listing because chances are a used item is not really going to get the buy box against me too easily. So I'm only, for this specific example, interested in new items. Now, I can also exclude acceptable conditions because acceptable conditions, it's a little bit more difficult to get the buy box, or even higher up on the thing on the actual listing if you go into like other competing offers when you're in an acceptable condition. And you can also exclude just launch sellers if you want, or you can unclick them as well. And like I said, if you need any other information, just read it, right? So check this box if you want to exclude all competing offers in acceptable condition. The default setting is clicked, but you can uncheck it if you want to, obviously. You can also exclude competing offers against like sellers with really bad feedback. So obviously there's a million different things that go into getting the buy box. One is like seller feedback. The other one's like customer service. The other one's like availability to the customer, and then price are probably the two most important. But there are a number of different things. So if you do have bad seller metrics, or if you're a just launch seller and you're fairly new, well, then you really need to compete on price and availability to the customer because you don't have the other metrics to match up against other good sellers, right? So if you have two sellers, one has good feedback and one has good customer service, and the other one has good, slightly bad feedback and bad customer service, and they're both the same price and both in prime and FBA, who do you think is going to win the buy box at the same price? The one with the better metrics, obviously, right? That's just common sense. So you can exclude any of these, or you can include them all and uncheck these. It's really up to you. Now, I always set my minimum to $0.01, and I always set my maximum to 1,000. It's just a personal preference. I never set a default minimum, and I never set a default maximum. Basically, that means if there's no other offers on the listing whatsoever, and if you're doing arbitrage, that's chances are never going to happen. And if you're doing private label, then then that can be useful to you. You can reset a default. Although if you're doing private label, chances are you won't be competing against other people on your listing as well. So I don't really ever set a default minimum. That's just my personal preference. You can if you want to, but I don't And so I always unclick these. And my minimum price is always a cent. My maximum price is always 1,000. It never goes really below, unless you're selling like a really cheap used book. It never really goes below like $5-6, but it really depends on the specific listing. Now, the maximum competing offers, I always set this to the maximum of 10. You can, it's the default 6. You could also, this is for something that's like, if you're selling, the only thing I can think of is like if you're selling used books and you want to compete and save your used book, so you don't want to match the lowest price, right? And you want to keep your price like somewhat in the middle, so eventually it sells for that price and you make a profit. That's the only time I would think that you'd want it a little bit lower. So I always keep it at 10, but that's just my personal preference, okay? Now, reprice new items when there are at least this many new competing offers. I always have these at 1, and same with the used, because if there's even just one other offer that's competing with me a little bit lower, I want to match that. Same thing with used items, same thing with new items. That's just my personal preference. You can have it 2 or you can have it 3, and then just hope that that other one sells out quicker, and then you sell for a higher margin. So like I said, you really need to get in and understand this, so play around with it, but it's not that hard to set up. Once you set it up, you'll see that it works, and then you can kind of, once you get the feel of how it works, you can then go back and tweak certain little things and see how they affect your pricing structure, okay? But that's just my preference. I always go maximum, number of 10, and then I keep these at 1, okay? So I don't keep the default price. If a price goes up, or if price goes down more than a certain percentage, do not reprice it. You can set this to a certain percentage. I don't ever do that. Because I'm really only interested in the repricing, right? I'm not trying to get too creative, because I don't need to get too creative. I really only want to match the buy box with my new items, and and then slightly, if I want to adjust them manually, I can adjust them slightly lower than the buy box, and then knowing that my repricing software is going to either match it at higher or match it lower in the future, I can do that manually along with my repricing software, right? So I don't really ever need to get too intricate, but you can if you want. They afford you all these tools. So don't get confused with all these options. Just know that they're options. You don't need to use them. You can just stick with the basics, match the buy box, and match the lowest price, which is probably what the majority of you want repricing software for anyway, right? So now moving on, so we're down here now. I don't ever, like I said, match if the price goes up. I don't ever match the price goes down. Another question too is, does this actually reprice higher items too? So if you have like the lowest item and then the rest of the competition raises it up, will it match that price? And the answer is yes, it will. So repricing models, reprice my inventory, and this is how you basically want to do this, right? So for these, because these are new items and we're shipping them into FBA, remember, and we want to match and compete against the buy box, we're going to click reprice my items against the buy box owner, right? However, if you were competing against the lowest price, if you were selling like used items, if you were selling like used books, or you just simply wanted to always have the lowest price, then you'd click lowest price. Now you can also reprice your items by condition and the same, only reprice them against items with the same exact condition as you, or better condition. You can also click that. I don't ever use that, and I don't ever use intelligent repricing, although you can try it out if you want to. You can read it, and they basically give you a synopsis of what it is, but I've never used that, to be perfectly honest with you. I only ever match the lowest price, and I only ever compete against the buy box owner, right? So we're going to, remember, these are FBA new, so we're competing against the buy box owner. I don't ever do the reprice sales rank above. I only reprice when an item goes up. I don't ever do that as well, because obviously I want to reprice if the item goes down too. Now, this is something that a lot of people get worried about. So you never want to compete or never price above Amazon.com if they're on the same listing. I don't ever do that. I don't mind repricing above Amazon.com, but if you're selling like something really competitive, or if it's like an arbitrage product where Amazon has a lot of inventory, then you probably want to click this, because chances are they're not going to sell out of their inventory unless you're checking like a Keepa graph and you see that they've scaled out of their inventory, right? So the only time you'd ever use this is if you're on a listing where Amazon has a decent amount of inventory and you know that chances are your inventory is going to get blocked, because if you have the same buy box price and you have the same lowest price, right, whatever, as Amazon, and they have a lot of inventory, they will share the buy box with you. They actually will, but you probably don't want to ever price it above them, right? Because you always want to match their price. So Then you can also do the percentage amount priced below Amazon if you wanted to do that. So if you always wanted to make sure that you stayed 5% below Amazon, you could do that. If you wanted to make sure that you always stayed 10% below Amazon, you could do that. Although keep in mind that they might have repricing software as well, and that might set off a chain reaction and a race to the bottom. So be very careful with that. I don't ever use it, but you can. The only time I would ever use this is because, like I said, remember, I like to manually do all my arbitrage products in FBA. I only use this for the FBM, like used books, and I only use this for FBM new products that I'm merchant filling myself, okay? So that's what you could use it for. Now, you can also, how much you want to price below or above the competing offer. So the only time you would use repricing software if you didn't want to match the buy box, right? So I use this, like I said, to match the buy box or to match the lowest price. If you wanted to always make sure you were slightly below the buy box to win the buy box on an FBA listing, well, then you're good to go right here because, like we said before, we are competing against the buy box owner right here. So these are the main things that are important, right? Not the other little things. So we could always stay 1 cent below the buy box, right? A fixed price adjustment of 1 cent below the buy box, right? So that's how you could do that. If you always wanted to stay 5 cents below, you could stay 5 cents below. If you always wanted to stay $1 below, you could stay $1 below. And vice versa. If you don't want to ever stay below as you read this, then like you said, the default setting is 0. You can also price above a given target, but by putting a negative amount in this field, or by putting a negative amount in this field. But if you want to match the target offer, then put a 0 in this field because that's going to match it, right? If you wanted to stay below the buy box, then you'd stay below by a cent, okay? If you wanted to stay above the buy box, you'd go negative 1 cent, and then you'd always stay 1 cent above the buy box, okay? So that's how that works. You can also always stay a percent below. You can also stay 5% below, and vice versa. Same thing with above. Okay, so now you can compare your FBA items with just both FBA or non-FBA. That's what I always do. I always do both FBA and competing FBA offers because I have seen that you can win the buy box when you're not in FBA, despite what people think. It can be slightly harder, but if your metrics are good, you can also win the buy box as a non-FBA person competing against FBA people with the same price. Believe it or not, I see it all the time, and it happens all the time. Or you can compete only against other FBA offers or non-FBA offers if no other offers are found. So that's what I usually like to do. I only compare against non-FBA offers if no other FBA offers are found. That's what I use for the new ones in FBA, but you can also, this one works as well too, or this one works as well too. It's just, like I said, it's all personal preference. Don't get too caught up in the nuances of these things. This is the safest one right here. Don't get too caught up in the nuances of this part, of all the other little things there. The main things that you want to worry about is who you're competing against right here, right, in this section, and what your fixed price adjustment is or what your percentage adjustment is, so you can either stay below or above or match, right? That's all you're really worried about. And then make sure that the other ones just kind of make sense to you. So now the following settings can only be applied to your merchant fulfilled items. So obviously we're in FBA, that doesn't apply to us. And then upload my repricing changes to Amazon once I save this setting. So that's what you want to do when you want it to go live. Same thing with the other scheduled settings, right? So if you don't want it to go live yet, you can simply, and this is if you have an external website or external software that measures this stuff, then you want to click this and it'll send it to your external software as well. So if you want it to go live immediately, click this there. If you don't and you want to test it first, like we talked about before in your reports, then you leave it unclicked and you save your settings, and then you're able to test it in your settings, right? And the way that you can test it, see update successful. So now we go back to our dashboard, and you'll see that, okay, the test template is good to go. Now the way that we could test this, because we didn't click that, right? So when we hit reprice it now, it's not actually going to make the adjustments in Seller Central. It's only going to provide us with the repricing report of what would have happened. So we would hit reprice it now, test it out, see what the repricing report says, see if it made the adjustments that we like, and if it did, then we'd come back into the settings, we'd come down and we'd click this and save the settings, and then every time on the schedule, it would go live in our actual Seller Central and make the adjustments. And every time we hit reprice it now, it would actually make the adjustments, okay? So that's how you do that. and that's how you set up that software. Same thing would apply, just slightly different with FBM. Same thing would apply slightly different with used. Same thing would apply slightly different with matching the lowest price or staying below the lowest price, and vice versa. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So today I want to run you through BeCool, which is another repricing software that I highly recommend. Now, in the past, I used Reprice It, and I still currently do. However, I've been playing around with BeCool, and to be quite honest, it seems like a better repricing software. Now, I'm still kind of weighing the options here because I do use Reprice It, but looking through, and I'll show you through the back end of this here in a second, looking through the BeCool actual interface, it seems a lot more beginner friendly, a lot easier to use, and you can apply a lot more bulk actions to a certain specific group of actual repricing items, whether that's FBA, whether that's FBM, whether that's used or new. It seems a lot easier to use and a lot better, in my opinion, to apply those parameters to specific products in the back end, okay? With Reprice It, you kind of need to go through and set certain parameters and then apply those parameters specifically to all of your listings as a whole, and there's a lot more, complicated stuff in the back end. It still works phenomenally, don't get me wrong, but it seems BeCool is a little bit more beginner friendly and still does a lot of the same things that Reprice It does, but easier and more beginner friendly, okay? So to touch on this really briefly, there is actually a free trial. You can try it risk-free, I believe, for 14 days, about 2 weeks here. You don't even need to put a credit card in, and I do actually have an affiliate link for it as well. I will make sure to drop that directly below if you want to check it out. Here's a view of it in the back end really fast. I'll just run you through exactly how I plan to use it. Now, keep in mind that I don't actually use repricing software for my FBA listings a lot of the times, okay? The reason for that is I'm going after maximum approval, which is something we've talked about many times, and so I like to reprice a lot of my FBM books because I don't constantly like to go through and match the price. If you have hundreds or even thousands of books or inventory at all, right, whether it's FBA or FBM, you kind of want to invest in a repricing software that's going to take your time out of the equation so that you can then reprice all your items and be buy box or lowest price competitive to make sales depending on what you're actually trying to sell, right? So I specifically like to go through and manually do a lot of my FBA listings, but if you have a lot of FBA listings and you don't want to waste a lot of time, you probably should be repricing with your repricing software on FBA as well. Now, I haven't actually applied any of these parameters to my FBM or any of my books yet because I still have Reprice It currently actively repricing my software or repricing my books with that software. So I'll have to actually stop that initially ahead of time. Another easy way to integrate this is once you sign up, you don't actually have to go find your product key and give them access. You can literally just click the button and it will auto-populate all that stuff for you and come back in with like an hour or two later, depending on how many listings you have, of course. And literally, it's just been granted access from Amazon, so it does all that stuff for you. You don't have to go into the back end of Seller Central and kind of find your key and then put it in like you do with Reprice It, okay? So there are a lot of benefits to this software that Reprice It doesn't have that I see, and I'm really excited to kind of dive a little bit more in depth with it. But you guys are here for the repricing backend, so let me show you exactly how I would use this if I planned on doing it, right? So you can sort through inactive, obviously active. You can also go FBA listings and FBM, and keep in mind it's literally pulling all this stuff up here for me. I didn't sign into any of this. It's got all my listings right here, literally downloaded into the actual interface. Whereas with Reprice It, you have to set parameters and then hope that it applies to those actual listings in your Seller Central. It's not showing you all of them visually in front of you and letting you set the parameters for them. Now, I could literally go through this and set all these parameters specifically, whether it's match the lowest price, right? Match the buy box or stay competitive or anything like that. You can also set rules here, right? Like stay competitive, maximize profit, compete for the buy box to maximize your profit, or compete to the buy box to stay competitive, right? I don't plan on using any of those, at least right now. And obviously, if you're just getting into it, I'd recommend that you do one of two things. Either match the buy box price or match the lowest price if you have a used item. Now, the only time that it gets a little sketchy here is if you're matching a used buy box price with a book, but we're not going to get into that today. That's a little bit more in depth, okay? So mainly there's two reasons that I would use repricing software, and probably two reasons that you would do that as well, right? So for my FBA listings that are new, I want to match the buy box price, and I don't want to constantly have to go through and log into Seller Central and check to see that it evens up with the buy box price in my Seller Central, and so that I can still be entitled to getting that sale because I'm buy box eligible, right? Because we know that 90 to 95% 75% of the sales on Amazon come directly from the actual buy box, okay? The other reason is if it was like a used product or a used book, because I'm trying to go after maximum approval and get a lot of sales. So I want to constantly maintain the lowest price so somebody buys my book because it's a used book. And that's another way that I'm increasing my sales on my Amazon account so that I can potentially, obviously, get more sales and then, get auto approved for certain brands and categories in the future via maximum approval. So here we are with my active FBM listings currently. So if I wanted to do a bulk application to every single one of my listings that are active FBM, right? I could literally hit the select all, super easy, and literally go through the bulk actions and apply that rule. So I specifically would go match your price as the lowest price here, and then simply apply it to everything so that every one of my listings ends up being the lowest price, and then I don't ever have to worry about it. It will just trickle in sales for me. You can also set a minimum price here if you want to make sure that you're profitable, although I don't necessarily care about that all the time because I make enough profit with my FBA listings that, yeah, I lose money on an FBM used book here and there, but I don't care necessarily about losing like 20 cents or 50 cents here and there or making $1 regardless of what it is. I just want the sale so that I can get ungated and approved for brands in the future, right? But you can set a minimum price if you want to make sure that you're still profitable. Now, the other way that you could do this is you can go into FBA. So I don't want to obviously show you exactly what's in my FBA right now because I don't want you to go out and source the same exact products, whether they're wholesale, whether they're bulk deal, whatever it actually specifically is. There's countless tutorials that I've done that show exactly what I source, how I source them, and how you can replicate that process. But let's pretend that these were FBA listings right here, right? So what I could do is I could literally go through individually and apply parameters to them, or I could once again select them all and go to bulk actions and then literally hit match the buy box price, right? So match your price as the buy box price. So you can literally go through, like I said, and select certain parameters, whether you want to set the minimum cost in FBA, the max cost, you want to apply a specific rule there, or you just want to set them all to match the buy box price, which is what I plan on specifically doing, okay? Now keep in mind that once you do set this software up, you can't actually change them in Seller Central, because if you change a price manually in Seller Central, it will deactivate the auto pricing on that specific listing going forward. So just keep that in mind. I used to, before I used repricing software and I used to do a lot of coupon arbitrage, I would literally waste like 2, maybe not 3, that's a bit excessive, but maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, literally checking my listings and manipulating the prices to make sure that I got sales. And I could have literally just outsourced that to a software like this that would do it all for me, right? So I highly recommend that you check into Be Cool. It's pretty self-explanatory. Once you sign into it, download all your stuff into the actual software, which it will walk you through that process once you sign up. Then you can literally start applying these, and it's not complicated like Reprice It. You don't need like a 25-minute or a 30-minute tutorial on how to actually set the parameters. It's very, very, very easy to understand, right? Inactive, active listings, FBM, FBA listings, right? Or all of them together if you want to apply them all. And then literally just select bulk actions or apply them specifically to each individual listing, and boom, you're off. All right, so today's going to be a cautionary tale on repricing software and why you really need to understand repricing software if you're going to utilize it, and set some parameters or bars essentially so that you don't go too low on certain products. Now, understanding this is something I literally stumbled upon. I have repricing software as well, but a vast majority of my new books and new products that I send into FBA, I monitor manually for this reason. So I use repricing software on a lot of things, but for my new inventory, a lot of it, if it's like books or like high-end products that I'm sending into FBA, I like to monitor the prices and do it manually. So what I happen to notice on a book that I bought, as you can see here, and I'm going to do this really fast because I want to buy it, is literally, I bought Mosaic Spanish, a world language right here on eFlip for $39.55, right? The new price, as you can see here, is roughly about $200. So that's, the buy box price right here. Amazon has it at $207. Phenomenal profit margin of at least $150, right? If not more after fees. So I happen to notice as I was slowly dropping the price over the course of the last 2 days, as soon as I would do it, someone would drop the price directly below it, right? Directly below it. So they weren't matching. They weren't playing the game, essentially, which I always recommend matching the buy box price. And this is exactly potentially why, right? So instead, they would drop the price already below it, right? So you'll see here that this person has the book right here at $17.92 with $3.99 shipping and $132 tax. So essentially, I can get this for like $24, $25, or I guess that's like $22, $23 roughly. simply because I happened to notice that they were repricing me right below, and I happened to notice, okay, I wonder if I drop my price all the way down to 99, are they going to match? And no, they dropped it to like 94 with shipping, right? So I was like, all right, you want to do that? Like, I want to drop the price all the way down to like 20 bucks and see if they match. And what did they do? They dropped it like 3 cents lower or whatever that ended up being, right? So what did I do? I dropped it all the way down, right? With the intention to buy their brand new book. And now I am going to buy their book super, super cheap. Literally raise my price back up to $207.73, and now I just got another book that I'm going to make $150 on just because this person was using repricing software incorrectly and not paying attention to their inventory. So, little cautionary tale, I'm going to buy this book right now, and we'll flash to the next screen where I'll talk a little bit more about this. So now we're back on the detail page, and I just bought that. I just got a great new piece of inventory that I'm literally going to package up, send into FBA, and make 150 potential bucks on, okay? Now you can see literally the cheapest now is all the way back up to $208.97 because I repriced my book all the way low, so I knew that they were using repricing software and dropping it right below me. I dropped it all the way down to like 20 bucks, which I then purchased up at $23.23, right? So initially I found this book right here, as you see the two highlighted. So the one currently is an FBA, the one that I'm talking about, that's about to sell. I bought this on the 16th, finally got into inventory, 15 days later with a big shipment. So I bought that for about 40 bucks, knowing full well that I could resell it back for above $200. So whatever that profit margin ends up being, let's figure that out really fast. I'll break it down for you. So we use the AMZ Scout calculator. We say that we sell it roughly for $208.97. I hope this works. It's been working recently, but sometimes it's a little shoddy. Of course, why not? So let's go into the FBA calculator right here. Still not working, and I'm going to pull this up for you. I want to show this to you because I want to show you the margins here so you see full hand, firsthand, just how much opportunity there is if you understand these certain things, okay? So let's get the ASIN or the ISBN, excuse me. So the price here is $208.97, okay? So our item price is $208.97, and the ship to Amazon is going to be like 50 cents. Going to ship it in with like a big bulk, shipment with a bunch of books and other stuff right here. Our cost of the product was $23.23. So then our potential profit margin ends up being $146.72. Okay, so if I lied earlier by accident, I said it was like $150 or a little bit more. If I purchase the original one at 40 bucks, then it looks like I'm probably looking at like $130 or $140 profit margin. Still incredible, and that should sell out pretty quickly because as you can see here, it is 66,000 in books, so it sells pretty fast. So great purchase. I highly recommend that if you're using repricing software, you think about these things going in and you put stop gaps in place so that you're only willing to go down to a certain point so that people can't take advantage of you like this. All right, so another online arbitrage software battle. This one is heavily requested, so I figured I would tackle it for you today. And we're going to tackle two repricing softwares that are very popular. Now, I've tried both of them. I recommend one of them, and obviously you'll find out what that recommendation is here in a second. We'll break down the pricing structures of each one, which one's cheaper, which one's more affordable, and then we'll also break down the ease of use of each one, or which one's more complicated, as well as which one is, probably your best bet if you want the most effective repricing software, right? So if price doesn't necessarily matter to you, but you just want to get the job done, which is basically what you're paying a repricer for anyway, okay? So obviously, you see from the title, it's going to be Be Cool versus Reprice It. First and foremost, let's address the free trials, right? Because we all, especially when you're getting into something like this, you want to kind of understand, how long you can get to try that software out, okay? So if we look at Be Cool's free trial is 14 days. Now, Reprice It, on the other hand, has a 30-day free trial. So if we look at it just on the basis of free trials, Reprice It beats it out and almost doubles or more than doubles the amount of free trial that you get, right? So you get 30 days for free. With Reprice It, try out and test the software. You only get 2 weeks or 14 days with Be Cool, okay? So that's a check in the Reprice It column. Reprice It's winning. Now let's look at the pricing, okay? So Reprice It is also a lot cheaper, right? So obviously with repricing software, it's going to depend on the amount of inventory, right? So the amount of listings that you have that are being repriced is how you're going to be charged, right? Ultimately, the more listings that you have, the more you will be charged, or the higher plan you'll want to pay for, obviously based on how many listings you have, right? So if we look at the very, very cheapest part of Reprice It, once you go through the trial, it is $9.95 for 1 or 500 listings. Once you cross that 500 threshold, right, so 501 listings, you need to step up to the basic plus plan, which then becomes $16.95. So $16.95 will cover you from 501 listings all the way up to 2,000 listings, and then obviously when you cross that 2,000 barrier, then you're moving up to another tier and you get 2,001 listings up to about 5,000 listings, and that's $24.95. Now there are 4 other plans after that if you have more listings, but I'm assuming the majority of people watching this video, are basically watching a repricing breakdown of repricing software are more on the beginner side, right? So they're probably not going anywhere over 5,000 listings. But if you are, obviously, then you can look a little bit more into those top 4 tiers if you want to check them out, right? The majority of people, I would say, are probably going to fall into one of those first 2 tiers, so anywhere from 1 to 2,000 listings on Amazon, okay? So ultimately, you're looking at like 9 to, or like 10 roughly, all the way up to like $25, depending on where you sit or where you fall in the amount of listings that you have, okay? Now, if we look at BeCool, on the other hand, BeCool for 1,000 listings, so up to 1,000 listings, if you pay annually, you're paying $22.50, okay? Now, if you pay monthly, obviously, you're gonna be paying $25. You get a 10% discount if you sign up for the annual subscription and you agree to pay annually, okay? So if you agree to pay annually, like I said, you're gonna be paying $22.50 for 1,000 listings, and your repricing speed is 15 minutes. Now, they're all 15 minutes except for the very, very highest plan, which then it becomes 5 minutes. And if you're selling a lot of units, right, or you have a lot of inventory, then that can make a massive difference for you, right? But ultimately, for the majority of people, myself included, the 15 minutes versus the 5 minutes repricing, right? So it reprices your listings every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes. Really, it's not going to make that much of a difference, right? As long as you're keeping your repricing software and it's constantly adjusting it and constantly making updates to your actual prices, every 15 minutes is pretty solid in my opinion. It's not going to make that much of a difference, okay? So then if we compare those two, right, so BeCool already lost out to Reprice It in the free trial, right, which is double. And now if we look at the pricing, Reprice It also takes the cake with the pricing, right? Because if you look at the lowest tier on BeCool, you're paying $22.50 a month for up to 1,000 listings, right? But you can get 500 to 2,000 listings, so within that 1,000 tier, right, for $16.95 on Reprice It, okay? And if you even have a little bit less than that, if you have less than 500 listings, which is probably the majority of people here, you only have to pay $10 a month for Reprice It, okay? So Reprice It not only wins already on the free trial, but it also wins on the pricing structure and your cost every single month, okay? So we have 2 to Reprice It, okay? Now, if you move up to 5,000 listings, it's going to be $45 a month on BeCool if you're paying annually, and $50 a month if you're paying monthly, okay? So Reprice It's really looking like the better deal at this point in time, okay? But what is my experience with these, right? How easy is it to use these? How effective are these repricing softwares? I've used both of them, but ultimately my experience with Reprice It, to be perfectly honest with you, while it definitely is great because it has the 30-day free trial and that's great for beginners, it's also great because it's a lot cheaper than BeCool, but ultimately, in my experience, it's a lot, not just a little, right? Not just a lot, but a lot more difficult to actually set up and maintain. You actually have to go through this long process to create a rule and then apply that rule to all the specific things in your inventory by setting another parameter, right? Ultimately, my experience with Reprice It, while if you have, experience setting up software like that in the past or in the back end of your Seller Central and kind of setting up your not your CD key, your AWS key or whatever they call it with another software, you could probably set it up in 30 minutes and it won't be that difficult for you. That said, if you compare it to BeCool, BeCool is literally so much easier to set up initially and so much easier to make adjustments to your actual inventory and to your actual specific listings, because you can actually see every single listing in the software and make those slight adjustments, and you can set minimum, maximum price a lot easier. So ultimately, it's probably only going to take you 5 to 10 minutes to set up BeCool and actually make an adjustment. It'll only take you like a minute or two. You can literally go through and make an individual adjustment or apply it to a bunch of different things. You can apply it to all your FBM inventory, all your FBA inventory, or a specific parameter or set of your inventory. And once you actually look into the software, you'll see a lot of that as well. So ultimately, it really is going to depend which is the better software, is going to depend on your goals, right? Are you just starting out? Do you not have, a lot of money or a lot of cash flow, right? And you kind of want to go the cheaper route, and you're okay with spending a little bit longer initially and, kind of going through a little bit more trouble to set your repricing software up, just so that you only have to spend $10 a month initially to basically pay for the cheapest version of Reprice It, then that's probably where you want to go, right? Now, if you're already selling halfway decent, right? So you're selling at least a couple $100 to a couple $1,000s a month, I would recommend BeCool, okay? BeCool is it's so much of a better software. It's so much easier to use. It is more expensive, and the free trial isn't as long or, nearly as long. But it's such a better software, it's easier to use, and most importantly, it's easier to make those individual adjustments to your FBM. If you're someone like me that sells FBM sometimes, but also ships things into FBA, you need to make a discrepancy between the two. And while you can make a discrepancy between the two on Reprice It, it's a lot more difficult to actually do that. It takes a lot longer, and ultimately, you're gonna save a lot more time, and it's gonna be a lot less of a headache to do it with BeCool. But like I said, it's really gonna depend on your goals, right? If you're just starting out, you kind of want to keep your expenses as low as possible, and you're okay with spending a little bit more time and a little bit more, mental effort, I guess, to set it up, then check out the repricing tutorial with Reprice It. Now, if you're already selling well, or you plan to potentially scale this up and sell, well in the future, and you want to learn a software that's really going to be the most effective for you and is still not expensive and is definitely going to make, pay for itself by repricing all your items, you're going to make, whether it's 25 that you're spending or 50, or I think if you're paying annually, it's 22.50 or 45. Now, the majority of us probably won't get over that 5,000 listings. I'm not even over 5,000 listings yet. So it's still relatively cheap with BeCool, but if you compare it to obviously Reprice It, it's a little bit more expensive. So I recommend BeCool for the majority of people. It's a better software, but if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of money and you want to keep your expenses low, then check out Reprice It.